Hey guys, to celebrate the release of Doctor Strange coming out very soon, I decided to do my own personal list of my top 10 comic book origin movies. Very simple criteria, has to display the origin of the character in the title or the team in the title, not much to it. So here's my list of my top 10 comic book origin films. Number 10 is Guardians of the Galaxy. I was going to list this higher, but I wasn't too sure whether or not it counted as an origin film, but I did add it because it is definitely the origin of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but primarily the origin of Chris Pratt's character of Star-Lord, aka Peter Quill. It has great music, great humour, pretty good action, and overall really fun story, and the cast works very well actually. And overall, there's not really too many complaints I have with it, but as I said, it's only this low on the list primarily because I wasn't too sure if it fit the criteria properly. And number 9 is surprisingly Batman Begins, and the reason I say surprisingly is because I don't really like any of the Batman movies, and I just don't like Batman in general. But I do have to give this movie credit for what it did do at the time. It's a solid origin story, great cast, decent storyline with some decent action as well. But the main reason I've put it on my list, even though I'm not a big fan of it, is that it did boost this new Dark Knight trilogy, and it was a great brand new take on the character at the time. And overall, I just have to give it credit for what it did, and that's why it's number 9 on my list. And number 8 is X-Men First Class, which is actually my favourite X-Men movie to date. And the reason it's on my list in this low, it's also similar to Guardians of the Galaxy, as it's a team movie, so I'm not too sure if it exactly fits the criteria, but I did make it fit basically purely because it showed the origin of the first X-Men team, and overall, it's a really solid film, and there's not many complaints I have with it. The cast is all really good, the special effects are really good, the action's decent-ish, it's more of a character movie than an action movie, I'd say, and overall, despite the continuity errors with the rest of the franchise, it's a very solid film that I really do enjoy every time I watch it. And next up on my list is Deadpool. I do really like this movie, but I'm definitely not as big a fan of it as many other people are. But I do like it very much as an origin story. The movie feels very short as a whole, but the origin story aspect of it is really solid. It's a new way of doing it with the flashbacks, a bit reminiscent of the Arrow TV series. But overall, it's a really good film. Great action, great humour. Some things are in there that I didn't think needed to be, which I've spoken about in another video I've done. But overall, it's a very solid film that is always entertaining to watch. Which leads me to number 6, which is Captain America the First Avenger, which I actually like quite a lot. A lot of people say they get bored watching this sometimes, or drags on, or whatever they say. I think it's a fantastic movie and a fantastic origin story. The cast is really good, special effects are good, the story I find very entertaining every time, and overall the montage sequences, Red Skull, all of this is really solid and really entertaining with a great love story, and it's overall just a great origin story and a great way to introduce the world to the character of Captain America. And number 5 is Doctor Strange, which is of course the latest Marvel flick to come out, and I really like this movie. The special effects and the action scenes were just really cool. Villains were okay, but I still enjoyed them a lot. The whole concept of the movie was great, and Ancient One I really liked. And overall, the origin aspect of the film, which I really felt for Stephen Strange throughout the movie. I was really on his side the whole time, even though I was really arrogant and all that. But overall, a really good film and another great entry in the MCU. And number 4 is Spider-Man from 2002. I'm a bit prejudiced towards this movie because this was literally my childhood, so I have great nostalgia for it. But overall, this is like the first big proper origin movie, comic book wise, and it's such a good film. It still holds up. There are obviously flaws, a bit cheesy moments, things like that. But overall, special effects were pretty good at the time. They still hold up mostly today. The action's good. The story's solid. The character motivations are really cool. And the origin for me was a bit too fast in this one. The origin aspect of Spider-Man was done a bit better in The Amazing Spider-Man, which I'll talk about later in the video. But this one's still a very solid entry, and as it was the first time for the character to come up to the big screen, it was a great interpretation of the character. And number 3 is Ant-Man. I think I like this movie a lot more than other people do. It was one of my favorite movies of last year. And the biggest complaint I've heard is that villain. I quite like the Yellow Jacket. Corey Stoll did a pretty solid job, and the villain just looks really cool. Yes, it was a bit rushed, sort of like the first Iron Man, the whole villain turning evil arc, but not a big problem for me. But the cast is really good. Paul Rudd was fantastic as Ant-Man. The comedy is really good. Action's really good. The suit looks awesome. And overall, it's just a really solid film. And like a lot of these movies on this list, I don't have many complaints for it. And it's just a really fun movie. And number 2 is, of course, Iron Man 1 from 2008. It'd be very weird if this movie wasn't on the list. It's a very good film. I didn't really appreciate it the first time I watched it. I did really enjoy it, but only after a few viewings I realised how good of a film it was. The whole third act, which bothers some people, doesn't really bother me, but I understand why it does bother them. But the cast is really great. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. is really cool. Of course, the action and the suits are really great, and it's just a very good introduction to the character because a lot of people didn't know who he was. So it was a very solid beginning to the MCU, and overall, it's just a really, really good film that's very hard to beat nowadays. And that leads me to my number one pick for my favorite comic book origin movie, which I know a lot of people aren't going to like the fact that's on my list, and also that's number one. But for me, I love this movie, and it's The Amazing Spider-Man. I think this is just an excellent movie. I genuinely have no complaints about this film. The action's superb, the costume looks fantastic, the cast is just awesome. Andrew Garfield's a great Spider-Man. I still think he's the best Spider-Man. His romance with Emma Stone is awesome in the movie, and it only gets better in the sequel. The story is very solid, and it's similar enough to the comics in their last trilogy that you know what's going on, and it's similar, but there's enough new stuff going on that's actually to the comics that gives it a nice blend of new stuff that's going on, and the whole new storylines that they added in on the villain. Overall, really liked it, really enjoyed it, and it's just a fantastic movie. But that's all, guys. That is my list of my personal top 10 comic book origin movies. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Have you seen Doctor Strange? Thank you very much for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.